We all recognize him here in this region as a culture bearer, as a man who respects all the people and takes the time to go be with people. I can't remember how many times I've seen him show up at a funeral when I thought he was way down the river, but he cares for the people, and we want to take a few minutes to hear from Jerry. Welcome, Jerry.
Thank you. I've known Will for some years, and I always knew that he was humorous. I always tried to be like him, but I couldn't find it. But this morning, I wanted to start out with a little humor about my Indian name. I have 3 of them. I have 3 feathers I can use. The first one is Titeaita. Right, Diane? That means he who walks straight as the arrow, you know. I wonder if I am straight as an arrow. The other one is the Nalseen women, they honored me with this name, and it's called Tilkreta, which means he don't waste time, he just moves, you know, just gets going. Do I look like that? Third name is not Tilkreta, you know. He who moves his hands moves fast and do things. And it's not open to interpretation, too. Anyhow, as I've stated before, like many other folks, I too had my own experiences. And it wasn't all happiness, and it wasn't all fame and glory, and it just wasn't anything that anybody would by choice get into. I was raised by my grandfather and grandmother, Joe and Selena Joseph. And at an early age, I was immersed in cultural values, spiritual values. But, you know, as I was growing older, peer pressure, community pressure, I was growing up in the middle 60s, early 60s. You can see I didn't grow out of that. You know, so there was a lot of liberal way of thinking, you know, challenging established beliefs and methods of community lifestyle. Some of it was good, some of it was bad. It took me many years to, you know, kind of recollect after my experiences. One of the experiences that I had was the fact that at age 19, I started to drink and smoke cigarettes and this stuff, among other things. And it was the day I started doing that, immediately, the first time I did it, I couldn't remember some of the stuff that I did. Right out just stepping out of the door with it, I became an alcoholic. And thereafter, there was some addiction to other, you know, drugs and stuff. Slowly, progressively, it kind of worked its way into the point where it became part of what constitutes your character. And some of it is good, some of it is bad. I'm never, you know, You know, in the early age, right after drinking, I got settled down with a woman with whom I was married for 30 years. And in that 30 years, it wasn't all fun and glory. There was a lot of hardships. And along the same time, I committed to leadership, political, tribal leadership. I made the drastic, tragic mistake of placing leadership before my family. There was times that were difficult because of that choice. So I wanted to share with the younger guys here that, you know, my name, that big title, you know, it just means that I've committed to work for people. That's all it means. And I share you my story today because it wasn't easy getting here. I am a guy who had a very difficult time learning. I have a very hard time learning. I can't read and crank out the material that teachers and professors would want you to crank out. I just can't do it that way. Frustration. So I quit college after 1 year. I never did go back. Instead, I learned in my own way, at my own pace. That was through listening, reading two pages every 3 hours for 3 hours. Try learning at that pace. It'll take you forever to get some sort of certificate of completion. But that's the way I learned. You know, in the early days of my life, I subscribed to notions like freedom of choice, freedom to be who you are. And there's one element in that freedom that I forgot, or rather didn't want to accept, and that's responsibility. There's a responsibility in everything you do, everything. The choice you make has consequences. And it's nobody's fault but yours to live with it. The challenges that it creates was a long journey, like many people refer to. Mine was, some of it was happiness. A lot of it was difficult. Before I get in further into it, I'd also like to say that, you know, for me being here, I thank the 42 tribes, and I also thank you welcome you in behalf of the 42 tribes who put me here as their leader. I thank the traditional chiefs, Don Honey Sr. and Tremble Gilbert, and the Tanana Chiefs Executive Board, and the TCC staff. I want to always try to be able to thank them because they are those people who not only put me here, but help me do the work. And the executive board, they guide me with directions and this stuff, and it's most honorable that we have good executive board members who do great work at directing TCC. March 2006, I was elected president. At that time, I had a family. I had a wife, I had my whole thing, my kids, and it was a new level to get started with. New vision, new everything. Being president of TCC meant a great deal of workload to be expected. And at that time, I talked with my wife as to whether I should do it or not, and she encouraged me to go ahead and do it because you have the compassion to lead people. So when I ran for the presidency in '06, the Chiefs thought I was a good choice and they elected me. 1 month later, my father-in-law, who was dying from cancer, passed away. And before March '06, in June of 2003, the anniversary of which I had an acute awareness of 2 days ago, one of my sons, who served for 4 years in the U.S. Army, 501st Airborne Infantry out of Fort Richardson, at age 21, committed suicide. 2 days ago, 10 years. I still wonder why. It's a very difficult experience to live with. Going 3 years forward from there, in March of '06, I got elected. And I went to work 4 months right after I got elected. We had a call from the Chief Andrew Isaac. They wanted my wife, Arlene, to come in because there's a suspicious mass in her lung. 2 weeks later, we found that she had terminal cancer. 4 months following that, in November, on my nephew John Isaac's birthday, she passed. And those months ensuing, those days, were things that I remember it in its minute detail, moment by moment. There was times when trying to get out of bed was harder than difficult. There's times when I had to come to work and face people that was difficult. And in the process, while my wife was sick, my mother, the woman that I loved in my life, I've learned to love her because she didn't raise me, my grandmother did. I had to learn how to love my mother. She had massive stroke. That same time that they told me that my wife had cancer, and 5 months after I got elected here, my mother died. And you know, those times, I was 2 years into my sobriety. My family worried that I might trip and fall. And I was aware of that. I was also fearful of it because it's just right there. But it also was the moment when I had to pull myself, dig deeper into my soul, my heart, to find whatever strength might be there. Some places it was just plain empty because of experiences. But just that one little hope sprouted. My daughter was having a baby. The baby was in the mom's womb. And every day, you know, I would think, new baby, new baby. And as, you know, there wasn't much said in my house. My daughter, my son, they were there, but we didn't talk very much. It's just, what can you say? The darkness, you know, the long winter nights, Sometimes that's a scary thing. For some reason, the shade of it changes. And, all the experiences like that. But Shania was born on March 30th, 2 weeks after TCC convention, 2007. Her Indian name is Nishta Tes, which means she carries me through. An appropriate name because of the hardship I was going through. And today, even though it looks like I'm young and I'm strong, still the challenges. The challenge is the fact that I spent 7 years here trying to address the issues faced by the communities within the TCC region. There was much to fix. There's much to do, much to address. Some we did, but that one thing that I always wanted to address, the healthy lifestyle, to reestablish the healthy lifestyle, has been as evasive as trying to hold fish with your bare hands. The addiction, I've been through that. I've been through not only being an active addict, but a recovering one. And recovering one, many of you've gone through that. There's lingering things about your active drinking days that you live today, too. And you have to address that. It's not workshop 6 months ago and you addressed it. It's an everyday thing. You got to address it every day. You have to remind yourself that just because you got this big Tanana Chiefs president does not mean that you should be arrogant, that you should be feelingless, that you should treat people with no respect or anything. What it means is you're a public servant, you work for your people. You try to alleviate the changes, the difficulties in a person's life, shortcomings, to the best of your ability. It's a two-way street. The service recipients, they need to do their part as well, and to respect their leaders, that we're not perfect. There's time in my life that the OCS took my kids away. Did you young kids know that? Did you know that? I know what it feels like when the authorities come into your house to take your kids away. Man, those times I hate it. I hate it with such compassion. And I tell you, it's a scary, scary thing to have when you have that hatred. Because you could do anything. The human mind is such that it could achieve any target objective. If you don't know that, try it. If you don't think you have the will, try it. A lot of us, you hear Will's story, Will Mayo's story. It wasn't easy for him to have gone through that, but he did. That's because the will of the mind, you can do anything. And I got into political leadership. At first it was they and us. You ever got into that? You don't have to answer that. But think about it. They and us. I've changed that stance in my lifetime. Now it's us. I don't look at it as me or mine. I look at it as we, us, and ours. That's because we live in Alaska. We're joined together by being an inhabitant within the state of Alaska, and we share a great deal of commonality, camaraderie, needs, wants. We're just people, as my grandfather, Joe Joseph, had told me. When I first started on my journey to sobriety, self-analysis, boy, it was hard. I still have a hard time with that today. I had to look at myself, everything, all my emotions, the way I see things, the way I relate to people, the way I act. Sometimes I act like a jerk, but, you know, sometimes in humor. The tough thing is to say I'm sorry. Gosh, that's tough. To tell somebody I'm sorry about things. Some of them I didn't even do that yet. But in my action, I try to do that. I try to demonstrate I'm sorry. You ever see me hug people? Shake hands? That's why. Quietly, I'm asking for forgiveness. Quietly, I'm saying that I now know my human weakness, and I want to be forgiven. Forgiveness is a word, and it's only a word. You got to put action into it. It's hard. It's very difficult, and it's a struggle every day with it. But, I'm thankful that I do that because now I feel good to me. I still didn't forgive me yet. I feel good to me. A lot of times, as people, we're so busy, we forget to say things to each other. Even people who live in the streets. You don't have to answer this question, but I'm going to ask you. How many of you have lived on the streets? Don't answer. Don't answer. How many of you lived on the streets? Would you believe that in one time in my life, I lived on 2nd Avenue? You know that Cushman Street Bridge down there? You go over it every day? I slept under there back in 1975. I was trying to go to work. I didn't have no money. I was starving. Sometimes I had candy bar to eat for a couple of days. And I got free coffee from Fairbanks Native Association the time when it was over there. I washed up in there. My towel was paper towels. So the young, you look at us, we didn't come here easy. I didn't have, golden spoons sticking out of my mouth. I had a hard time getting here. But, the thing is, I enjoy it too because I was able to get here by the brawn of my character and the brawn of my intent. Because our people, they care and they want you to serve them because they think you're the better choice to lead. I didn't come here by myself. I didn't self-appoint. The people in the interior of Alaska, the 42 tribes. They're the ones that put me here. I think I talked too damn long, so I gotta conclude. Respect is not just you and your friend. There's respect, like, I'd like to give you an example. With the governor here yesterday, Governor Parnell. Governor Parnell was from a different party platform than I was when he became governor. And I met him. I met him over there at 7th Avenue office building. And we had a heart-to-heart talk. And lo and behold, guess what was displayed there? Governor Parnell and myself were people. That's all we were, people. The governor, he had a mission. He wanted to achieve state leadership. I had a mission to achieve the TCC region leadership. We're concerned about the same thing: education, security, future, our children, our people. There wasn't one damn difference between Governor Parnell's vision and mine. So, I offered him my hand. I said, I'll work with you. Call upon me if you need. I'll work with you. I'll help you. Forget about the party line separation. We'll work together. You know what? Today I'd like to say that I work very closely with Governor Parnell. There's times we don't agree all the time. We don't agree all the time. But we do work together. And when he makes, he makes references to the one leader that he talked to that, and he tells his story. That was him and I at that 7th Avenue State office. So, a lot of times are hard. But do like this morning when I was coming to work, don't ask for blessing. Don't ask God for nothing. Just say thank you to God that I'm alive today. Thank you, God, I hear birds this morning. Thank you, God, the green, lush leaves and grass. Thank you for the people, my friends, my family. Thank you, I have a job. Thank you, I don't have a car, but I can walk. Just basic thank you. That will put away a lot of your clogged thinking, and it'll make you come closer to the Creator. So with that, I think I'm half hour into the schedule here, buddy. Thank you.